This podcast is brought to you by Taaffes Bar. Taaffes Bar are Galway's #1 GA pub in the heart of the Latin Quarter with live Irish music twice a day. So it's our final edition tonight of the Galway Senior and Intermediate Power Rankings. There's not a whole lot of movement really. It's just at the bottom side of the senior, the top side of the senior, and then the top side of the intermediate. But before we get started, just the very first power rankings we did, the bottom four was Nivana Letchmore 17th, St. Michael's 16th, where Barry came in from a lot of criticism there from the St. Michael's supporters and even some players. 15th was Calistran and 14th was Barna. So obviously they're the only team that went down was Michael's. And Barry, you did get a bit of criticism. If I just refresh your memory in case you don't remember some of these comments. Some of the comments just were on Twitter. Geez, have I ever read such muck? Barry Cullinane would want to get his head out of the clouds, and he picked the teams out of a hat. What's your response now to that?
Feel like I'm on prime time or Claire Byrne or something like that. Geez, I actually, do you know what? I feel bad for the teams that I did have down there. Yeah, look, I suppose when you want something like this, you leave yourself wide open for the Twitter warriors and the heroes of Galway teams of past and stuff like that to come at you. But like I must say, I will say to start, we'll come to Michael's, but you have to give huge credit to Carlos Strand and Lettermore. I thought they were teams that could be under a huge amount of pressure, and like particularly Lettermore when they got into that relegation kind of dogfight, they really stood up and were counted and deservedly fought their way out of it. And the same with Carlos Strand, they didn't even get into that last four. They really battled hard and results went in their favour. And I thought their spirit was outstanding. Might be struggling a little bit in terms of playing resources, but will always give it 100%. In terms of St. Michael's, it was funny, I think, at one stage. But I'll say about St. Michael's, I didn't see them being relegated, to be honest. And I did say when we started doing this thing, like, around that kind of 8th to 6th, 7th, 8th, down to 13th, 14th, 15th was like, we could throw them in a hat, and, as someone said, and pick them out of it. I think Michael's were unlucky. I think St. Michael's had the opportunity to get into the preliminary relegation playoff game, if that makes sense. I think they would have come out of that. And I just felt that once it went into a last four of bad weather and, everyone fighting for their lives, and you didn't know who'd have an injury or who'd have guys away or what sort of teams guys would have, anyone could have gone down. And I think on Speed can't really have any complaints. I think they unfortunately didn't cut the mustard, and they find themselves making the drop. And I suppose you could kind of say similarly to Carrow last year, where they just didn't perform at senior. And I think then St. Michael's, you would say they're probably similar to Monavea Abbey in that they will find themselves unlucky being relegated. And I'd say if we're doing intermediate power rankings for next year, they'll probably be right up at the top. And I think they will feel that the most important thing they can do now is regroup and bounce straight back up to the senior ranks. But as I said, it was interesting times.
So you have no response for them after being right?
No, look, I take no pleasure in being right, but I think maybe lessons learned for everyone to maybe keep your powder dry towards till the end of, or you see the results.
Just
I
with
think
that,
you have my home address. I think you're going to put it up on screen there just for if there's any written apologies or anything that want to come my way, or they can send them
is
directly
it,
to yourself, Paul, and
or
you'll
is
send
there
them
an
on to me.
email? Is
Yeah, yeah.
there?
Sorry to Barry at gmail.com.
Just with
Definitely,
that,
it was definitely the most talked about podcast, or the biggest reaction podcast I think you got all year anyway. So good to do it.
for sure. And just with that, the how we're obviously sitting the power rankings, don't have them up on screen now because there's not that much movement, but just 17th to Spittle, 16th to St. Michael's, 15th Nivan Lechamore, and then 14th Cullinane. On Spiddale, traveling players away didn't help their cause. They had Finian and then they didn't have him, which was obviously a blow going into the relegation. And on St. Michael's as a whole, how much of a blow is this for even football in the city for them to be in
Yeah,
intermediate now?
yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's not a fatal blow in that I think that they are young, they're a young there is a young age profile to the team. Even their juniors have done well. Um, their numbers are strong, so I don't see this being a permanent issue for St. Michael's. Unfortunately, if you look at Carrow, Killearn, where they went down to junior after being senior for so long, um, that's that that's really down to like just numbers and not having, you said players traveling, and same with on Spidja, like they need to get a lot of them players back, um, because
Yeah, Liam
they've
Kelly
they've
obviously of course as well actually.
yeah, like Liam, Finian, Anthony, like like real quality players, like they need all of those, and um I would say that they would have to put a big emphasis on all of that in pre-season to try and get them guys back if they can, and whatever guys they've left over, if they don't come back, they got to work hard and stop the slump, because it would be very easy to find yourself in that Carrow Killearn situation where you're going like, senior intermediate is going to be really really competitive. Last year, like Minla came up and they're strong outfit, and it's not going to be easy. But I would say for St. Michael's, it will be a case of, licking your wounds, getting back into the swing of things, finding a manager, or sorry, like making, not finding a manager, but settling on their management team. If Colm Tumman, who had done a brilliant job with them, but if Colm Tumman wants to stay on, settle on that quickly, get a good man, his management team settled around him, make sure they get back into things very early, and try and bounce back up again straight away, because that's the easiest way to come up with once you get into the rush in intermediate. It can be very hard to make that breakthrough.
On Lettermore, massive credit to them. They started off in 17th, so you ranked them as the worst team in senior football, and now they've got out of that hole. But a massive credit to Aidan Valley. It's his first year in there. Obviously, that result first day out against St. Michael's was really huge, and then a draw against Cullinane meant they had this in their own hands. And there is young talent coming through there, but it's huge for that Lettermore group to stay up and survive in senior.
Oh, and brilliant for football in the west of Galway, because you know it would be worrying. It certainly would be worrying if the teams that were relegated were on Spidgel and Lettermore for senior and Carrow from intermediate. That's concerning, and that's something that Galway, powers that be in Galway, really really need to address. And whether that's putting resources into the schools and making sure that players that do stay, and we know the demographics of the area, they are affected a good bit by immigration and by guys going traveling, guys going to Dublin. Um, but that the players that are left at home have been fully resourced in terms of you know everything that can be put into them in school is put into them, and that they develop that love of football that's obviously there in these clubs, because like there is a massive love of football in Lettermore. And I was lucky enough to play a good bit of football with Fiacre Brannock, or and and I know what it means to them out there. And um, yeah, like look, you just hope they can get things right. And I think I know, yeah, you're saying I ranked them 17th, and like you would have to say, Paul, after the group stages, they're probably like, okay, you could say maybe on Speedgel were the worst team, but I think through the group stages, Letchmore certainly didn't set the world on fire. So I think they did really,
They
really well in
did.
the
They
relegation
lost
thing.
that game, last game to Spittle to go straight in to the relegation, not having a relegation playoff. So
Exactly. So I don't think it can. I don't think they could have had too many gripes with where I ranked them. But as I said, massive credit to them for that draw with Cullinane was that was the one that really really got them where they needed to be.
on Cullinane, then it's hard to believe they found themselves here. But
Mm.
in saying that, they needed a result against Michael's the last day, or else they were going to intermediate football, which is really, really hard to believe because ultimately, if they won that last game in the group against Calstrand, they were going to be in the knockout stages of the championship. They lost, then they lost to Dunmore after extra time in Craig in the relegation playoff, which then found themselves. But there's still a lot to be positive for Cullinane about when you consider they've won the under 19 Westboard A title this year.
Yeah, but it's a brilliant football and parish and community. Like, look at what they've given us historically down to the years in terms of footballers, and like they that will come again. Like the huge tradition, and like that. I suppose like the problem you're going to get when you reduce the number of teams in a championship. So when there's 20 teams in a championship and it was two up, two down, like there was a fair bit of scope for maneuver in terms of like you probably had to be the two worst teams to be relegated. The problem now is when you're down to 16, there will be teams that feel like sorry, I'll rephrase that. So when we had 20 teams in Galway, there wasn't really 20 senior clubs in Galway, 20 clubs good enough to be senior. So there wasn't that many kind of hard luck stories. But there will be 16 clubs in Galway. I can guarantee you that feel that they are a proper senior team. So that means that two of those are going to be relegated throughout the as we go on. So you're always now going to have situations where clubs find themselves just in being very unlucky, like Cullinane, and all of a sudden finding yourselves in intermediate. And like you don't like look at the situation in Kerry where you've Munster champions being relegated, and that's just the way it's going to happen. When you've 16 teams, there's going to be teams that we would have seen as traditionally strong senior teams being relegated. Luckily for Clan, and that wasn't them this year. Um, they need to get a few of those under 19s through. Like even the last day, Patrick Sweeney and Johnny Heaney were standout players. Eh, They're not going to be around forever. They need to get a couple of guys there to really step up to that. So I think Cullinane have a huge amount to be positive about, but they just need to be careful.
Yeah, with the senior format, it's going to be obviously now four groups of four,
Hmm.
and then you have relegation, semi-final, and final. So if if a group can be considered a strong group, you could have teams next year being in this dreaded relegation playoff, which we seen with Clan.
And you absolutely will, and you absolutely will, because the more years that this keeps going, kind of the weaker teams will be gradually relegated, and then all of a sudden you're going to be left with 16 really really strong teams, or really strong senior teams, and that may, unfortunately, like just like it just doesn't go, and teams are going to find themselves in awkward positions.
Yeah, even with that 16, I don't actually think there's going to be like what you had with the 20 and necessarily weak team that you'd be predicting to go down straight away. Like it's going to be harder and harder to predict who's actually going to avoid that and who's going to be there at
Yeah,
the knockout stages.
yeah.
So just then, you saw Tilnachnacara first at the
Mm.
very first power rankings. You had Mike Cullen at second, and you had Kerfin at third. Um, but like we did highlight in the very first episode that Kerfin were dangerous this year. They were building something really special, and we both did say like it would not be a surprise if we did see them back on top in goal football.
Absolutely, and like we had to consider that they were also when like there was a strong possibility, there was strong rumors that Ian Burke and Jason Leonard weren't going to be around, so that was factored in as well, and you know the fact that the thing with Sawtill was I felt that they were very unlucky in last year's county final. They had three or four maybe more guys in with Galway that would have had a year more really, really high quality training, and that if they could have got things right, went and pushed on, but they just didn't. And I think that game against Corofin at the start really knocked the wind out of their sails, and then they got a load of injuries. And to be honest, the year was really, really disappointing for them. And I think they would have to say, put their hands up and say that if you were talking about teams, you know, that had really positive years or teams that had really negative years, Salthill would have to be on the larger scale of the negative, and yeah, a lot of it down to just unlucky in terms of injuries and stuff, but just never got a spark, never got any energy, and never looked like they were really going to compete. Yeah, improved against Mike Cullen, absolutely, but one swallow doesn't make a summer, and they'll have to take, as Kevin Walsh used to talk about, the end of year accounts. Like the Sawtill game, the Mike Cullen game, yeah, positive, and that goes on one side of the ledger. But certainly there was a lot of very, very poor performances in Sawtill, and they're definitely, you'd hope that John O'Mahony is going to stay on and his management team and try and rectify that. And I think if he does, his experience and Finning and Army and these lads, they'll try and get what went wrong this year sorted for next year, and still have really, really top quality players. But no, they won't be at number one next year. I can tell you that. But yeah, in Corofin, I think Mike Cullen probably could have failed to grieve. They were county champions, and I didn't have them at number one. I'm sure they didn't. I'm sure they didn't give it a second's thought. But if they did, they might have felt there was an issue there. And then obviously Corofin, and we did mention that the winner. We felt the winner was going to come from the top four, and three of the semi-finalists were in that top four. And Corofin went and produced a performance in the final. You'll have to say, not outstanding in the semi-final, but absolutely outstanding in the final, and huge credit to them and to Kevin Johnson and his management team.
Is this the most impressive Curvin County Championship win that you can kind of remember, just given what was thrown at them? Even injury wise, like they were still missing Dylan Canny. I think a lot of people are still forgetting that. It probably would be in the starting forwards, you'd imagine. But is this the most impressive win, given they were without it since 19? You could even see how they came back in 23 this year to win it for you.
I'll tell you, it certainly felt from the vibe you could get from the players and get from the supporters. This was a very, very sweet one, and like there was a realism. From when you talk to anyone from Corofin, there was a realism that what they had couldn't last forever. And they lost generational. Take the footballers out of it. They lost generational leaders. Like you lose someone like Fitzy from a dressing room, like Stephen Cluxton from Dublin. Look, they had to go and bring him back. They had to go and bring him back. Losing Fitzy, losing Kieran McGrath, losing Dahi Burke. There was an awful lot of holes that needed to be filled, and it took a bit of time. But what I can see now is, and I said it to someone like Dylan McHugh is developing into this leader, Kieran Malloy, Liam Silk, and the worry that you'd have for other clubs in Galway is that these fellas will go and drive standards like Fitzy did when he was there. And if they do that, then who's to know where this thing stops? Because as I said, you bring in Dylan Canny, there's a couple of other really good footballers in Corofin that are ready to come in, young Donlan, etc. But it was hugely impressive, and I felt like you can always tell, like a team is always a reflection on what the manager has given them, and like Corofin that team gave Kevin Johnson everything. Like they work, it was definitely like going on a bit here, but when we looked at Corofin All Ireland finals and county finals and stuff, we came away going like just the skill levels, the skill execution levels, the shot selection. We admired all that. Ronan Steed's kick passing, Mike Farrer's kick passing, Lundy's running, Gary Sice's scores, Ian Burke's moving. All of this Like it was just mind blowing stuff. Came away Sunday and it was like just that honesty of effort, lack of ego, everything that moved, they hit it, they worked Dylan Wall up and down that pitch, and that's a sign that they're doing it for their management team. And for me, that was one of the most impressive aspects of it. Yeah,
Just on my Cullinane, huge disappointment, I imagine, for the players. Sean Kelly's injury obviously did play a part in that. They've come up short, 111 to 1-9. They came with that kind of late comeback late on, but just came up short in the end. But we do have to say here they have been fantastic county champions.
but outstanding county champions, and outstanding ambassadors for Mike Cullen over the last 6 years, and um, even the years that they didn't win it, they made the competition. They drove the standard in the competition so that every other team had to reach that to go and beat them. Um, I mentioned on Galway FM on Friday night, in a perverse way, Monterey Abbey were lucky that Killy McDade's injury happened 2 weeks from the county final,
Yeah.
because it gave them an opportunity to kind of, to a certain extent, grieve his loss and accept it, and adjust for it and adapt for it, and move on. Where by all accounts, Sean Kelly's injury came kind of late in the day, and that knocks the stuffing out of things. And you could say, like, similar to maybe something like Jamie Ryan getting injured for Loughrea, like that. They're just hard to come back from those ones and get back up to the level. We had it ourselves in Turlough. Dahi got an injury before county final, and no matter what you do, when you lose a player like that, it's difficult to absorb it and kick on from it. And I think they just, not having Sean Kelly, he's their spiritual leader, and I think I think they struggle to adapt to not having him. And I think that's unfortunate. But I do think, and I have to say, I do think even if they had him, I just think with the way Corofin were going at it, I think they would have still come out on top. But it would have been for the neutral, like it would have been fantastic to see Sean Kelly there and see what he can offer, because he's, as I've always said, he's one of the top players that we've ever produced.
So just before we move on to the intermediate power rankings, there's obviously only a change there at the top. Who in the senior championship that wasn't on a Galway panel in
Oh,
2023 should be on a panel in 2024 for you?
um, Jesus, that's a good question. I thought Conor Corcoran was outstanding for my Cullen.
Yeah, really good.
Um, I would say, personally, I would say Dylan Wall, but I don't think that's going to happen. um, I think Gavin Burke was outstanding for Corofin. Um, I would say they'll probably have a look at Patrick Egan. Um, and I think Galway are going to have to look at players early doors in the league, because they're probably going to be down a number of players. But I'm trying to think anyone from Galway. I'd like to see maybe Conor Flaherty back, between
Would
the
you
sticks.
like Conor Flaherty between the sticks? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think he offers us something.
Is that a
Maybe
challenge though now, considering he hasn't played in goals in so long?
it's challenged himself. I think I don't think Porrick would be overly influenced the fact that he doesn't play in goal for Clare Galway. But I think if he could go and get himself right and have a cut at things again, he's certainly an option. Um, but I don't think anyone hugely stood out up top. I don't think we found any top forward. Um, like, I thought James McLaughlin did well the last day, but obviously he has been knocking around the Galway panel, and talks that he's going to Australia. Um,
Is Liam Costello possibly someone?
yeah, Liam Costello, Jack Curran from Milltown, they had been kind of knocking around Galway panels previously. but I think they're a little bit older now, a little bit more developed, and I think they're definitely options. Um, Ben Kelly from one of the Abbey or from one of the Abbey. Um, that's about it. Like I don't think there was any massive standout performances. Someone that really put their hand up and said, you gotta go and have a look at me, unless you saw more games than me. So maybe you have a couple of ideas.
I just think the common theme of the championship, we actually seen a lot of outstanding cornerbacks.
Yeah,
If you look at it, even Fionn Garvey the last day really good, and
yeah.
Paul Mannion, um, Jack Cran really good. But I think the problem is at the minute we're actually blessed. I think we're blessed with a lot of good backs in the county.
Hmm.
I I think probably something poor in the management we're looking for. I'm bringing in here was probably to find these one or two forwards more so than backs.
Yeah, but that's fair. I'll give you a player, but it's totally left field and probably maybe his best day. Eric Lee from Oughterard is someone that I think could offer Galway a lot. I think he has a huge athleticism, good on the ball, um, and I thought I saw him once. I think I saw him once this year, and I thought he played really well. Good work ethic, can kick frees, and he's someone that I think would should they should certainly have a look at.
Yeah, he's actually someone I didn't think of. He had a really good championship period. This is the thing now. There's going to be a lot of rumors going around who's in, who's not, and you won't feel the action coming around in the FBD either for Galway, but they'll be looking at various players. So we'll keep you updated around them here there. Intermediate final then. Monavea Abbey 14, Kilconnelly 11. On Monavea Abbey's victory, they started off at fifth in the power rankings in intermediate. So they obviously now find themselves at first. Kilconnelly are down to second after the defeat. This was a really old school kind of performance, you could say, from Monavea. Kilconnelly went ahead by two, but they kind of took control then in the end to go on and win this. But on the victory and the result as a whole, like massive achievement to go straight back up because it's far from easy at all.
Oh, it's brilliant achievement. But as I said, they were kind of at an advantage in that their senior campaign last year wasn't an absolute disaster, and they knew that they were competitive up there, and they were unlucky in some games that they didn't get that point or two to swing it in their direction, and you'd kind of feel sorry for Garvin McDade and that, yeah, they got relegated, but I thought they did some really, really good work in senior last year, and um, I thought they were really, really unlucky to go down. So the opportunity was there for them to bounce back up, and they brought in Bunty Roach, and he brought in Mike Farrer, and in later stages he brought in John Donlan. So everything was pointed in the right direction that they were going to go and have a right cut at this, and they certainly did. And they were down Killian, and even the likes of Barry McDonough wasn't involved, so they were down players. But I must say, I thought they showed that they played like 14 points is good score, and without a guy you'd be expecting to chip in with 2 or 3 points on top of that. But I thought their work ethic, and like what Corfin gave Kevin Johnson, I just thought all over the pitch the Mullivay Abbey lads gave everything for Francis Roach, and like when you're a manager, the joy isn't in seeing some fella kick a screamer with the outside of the right from the sideline. Like that's not. Yeah, it's great, and you want to see those scores and all of that sort of stuff. But what you're looking for is that every single time someone gets an opportunity to work, they work. And I thought Monavea epitomized that. I thought they were really, really good on that aspect of it, and credit to them. So like even going back just a completely aside, like I thought at one stage my Cullen had an attack in the senior final, like, and Owen Kelly obviously took off and found himself at full forward, and like Gary Sykes tracked him every single
Mm.
step of the way, and that just kind of highlighted what this meant to Corfin, and as I said, if you're a manager and you're looking at that stuff, you're going, yeah, this is whether we win or lose today, this is a good day because these guys are working hard. And I said, I thought on Saturday, one of Abbey worked really, really, really hard. And then when it really came to the crunch, they just got some of those scores that Kilconnelly weren't able to get. Top Paul Mannion was really good, but didn't have an awful lot of support up top. And I thought Monivea probably shaded around the middle. So yeah, look, really disappointed for Kilconnelly, and the one thing they can't do now is let this kind of noise around not winning the intermediate championships around them. They gotta kind of put that to the back of their mind now and just say, look, it's another year. Let's go again.
With Glenn Kelly, it's hard not to get excited about him as a Galway football supporter. Even in the first half, just before the break, he had a free to kind of drop short in front of goal. Niall Mannion got in the end of it. But from play, Conor O'Neill was doing a really good job of him in the first half. But when they went 2 points down, he showed a maturity. He showed a leadership to kick two cracking points. I think it was two in a row.
Mhm.
It's a really good sign of a player. And then even the free out on the sideline towards the end to stretch it out to three. He showed a maturity and something that's there, like that you wouldn't be surprised to see him in the senior panel even this year and another year.
Yeah, 100%. And he's still young and still learning and still developing. But like, even if you're looking at small stuff like the strike he gets on the ball is excellent, and like the older he gets and the stronger he gets, the better that will get because his technique won't fail him. And like that, you know, what I was impressed with him was like, yeah, he did all that stuff really well. And as you said, Conor O'Neill was giving him bags of it, but he never shirked it and he never went hiding. And he was constantly busy. He was constantly working, constantly looking for the ball. And like, even though it might be going your way, like it probably wasn't for him in the first half, if you've that attitude, eventually things will turn for you. And they did. And when they did, he was able to convert. And like, not every footballer is able to do that. And it's a sign of a good one that can. And it's definitely, as I said earlier, he's certainly one that Pádraig will be chatting to Bunty about and seeing, is this guy worth, not even saying like he's gonna change Galway's season in 2024, but is he worth someone that we can say, right, let's put our time into this fella that um we expose him to the high end training, high quality training, and see what happens in a year, 2 years, 3 years time.
So just before we touch on Kilconnelly, do you feel Kervin and Monivea Abbey are going to have a real crack at provincial honours?
Yeah, I do. Um, Curve Finn, like it's hard to underestimate what confidence does and tradition does, and they will say, look, we've been in this position before. We've Ballina next. If we get over that, you would imagine they've been well, I suppose the Roscommon champions, but they're in a pole position to go and win a provincial championship. Um, and I think they're going to have a right crack at it. They probably need to get a little bit, few more scores from their inside forward line. However, they're going to manage that. And Ballina have good backs. We know that. So I think their game against Ballina will be low scoring or lowish scoring. And I think if they can hold out defensively, which I think they will, and get a couple of more opportunities up top to try and get some scores, I think they're in with a right chance. I think Monivea the same, and like the big advantage of that is that if they can go and put a campaign, a provincial campaign, or an All Ireland series campaign together on the run into a senior championship, um, like you can't buy that sort of confidence, and I think they'll be having a right go at it. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you said with Kilconnelly, it's really kind of not get bogged down now about losing two finals in a row. I'm sure they'll be ready in a few months to have another crack at this. Just on the junior final, because I know you were doing commentary on it there at the weekend between Milan and Tombstairs. Rob Hughes was a man I'd say you played a lot against. But to see him still doing what he's doing, I think it was 8 out of it. Men lost 12, if I'm not wrong there.
Hmm.
One of the top performers really over the weekend.
Yeah, yeah, you couldn't give him enough credit. And yeah, I certainly had plenty of battles with Rob Hughes, and rarely probably came out on the right side of them. And just a really good player. Like, I don't imagine he does a huge amount in the gym, but he is naturally as hard as stone, and um, so accurate from frees. And the 2 points he got from play with his left foot were thing of beauty. And um, like, just covered every blade of ground, every blade of grass in the ground. I thought Tomas Mannion and himself, I would say, like, combined age of not far off 80, between the two of them. But I thought they worked their socks off for Minla, and gave them a platform and settled things down. When first 5 or 6 or 7 minutes, I was like, Jesus, Tumer racing away with this thing in terms of hands on ball and energy, and getting forward and all that sort of stuff. But Minla got a couple of good scores and settled things down, and ran out comfortable and deserved winners. And like, they will say, look, they'll know they'll need to work hard to get up to the level that's needed to compete at intermediate level, but there's definitely potential there. They've been there before, and um, I'm sure they've had a good week, and they'll also be looking forward to a crack at a provincial campaign, I think.
Yeah, they play this Saturday in Tuam at 2 o'clock against St. Michael's or Roscommon. That's a
There you go.
quarter final. So quick turnaround for those. But that's all we do have time for on our power rankings on the final edition. We'll have the updated versions and everything up on our social media as well when the podcast goes up. But Barry, thanks a million for your time.
So the apologies.